In a world saturated with noise, a world demanding constant performance and outward validation, there exists a man who operates on an entirely different frequency. He doesn't chase the spotlight. He is the quiet intensity that makes the spotlight seem garish and cheap. He moves through the chaos not by reacting to it, but by mastering the storm within himself, rendering the external tempests irrelevant. His power isn't shouted from rooftops. It's felt, an undeniable presence that unsettles the superficial and commands the respect of those who recognize true strength. Welcome, gentlemen, to Sigma Male Community, the sanctuary for those who walk this path of authentic self-mastery, for those who understand that true power is forged in the crucible of inner discipline and rational thought, not in the fleeting applause of the crowd. We are here to dissect the very essence of this intimidating power, a power rooted not in aggression, but in profound self-possession and an unwavering commitment to internal truth. The world often misunderstands the Sigma male, mistaking his silence for apathy, his independence for arrogance. But what they perceive as intimidating is merely the reflection of a man living by an internal code, a code that prioritizes substance over show and truth over trend. This discomfort in others often stems from encountering a level of self-sufficiency and emotional discipline that challenges their own reliance on external validation and performative social rituals. Today we delve into the 22 distinct characteristics that make the Sigma male a uniquely formidable presence, exploring how his adherence to principles reminiscent of ancient Stoic wisdom creates an aura that many find intensely intimidating. 1. The thermodynamic law of social energy. The Sigma male intuitively understands that energy, particularly social and emotional energy, is a finite and precious resource. He operates on a principle of conservation, refusing to squander his reserves on the performative outrage or manufactured enthusiasm that characterizes so much of modern interaction. This isn't about being antisocial, it's about understanding the calculus of authentic connection versus superficial engagement. He observes the ceaseless expenditure of others, their desperate bids for attention, their involvement in trivial dramas, and chooses a different path, one where energy is invested, not merely spent. This conscious decision to conserve and direct his focus is the first layer of his intimidating presence, a quiet refusal to participate in the energy-draining games most people play. This deliberate conservation creates what can only be described as a vacuum of expected reaction. People are conditioned to receive certain emotional cues, certain performative responses in social settings. When the Sigma fails to provide these, offering instead a calm, measured presence, it leaves others feeling unmoored, flailing in an emotional void. Their usual scripts are rendered useless, their social sonar receives no echo. This isn't a deliberate tactic to confuse, but a natural consequence of his internal framework, where emotional expenditure is reserved for what truly matters, a principle deeply aligned with the Stoic understanding of focusing on internal responses rather than external provocations. His stillness, therefore, is not passivity, it is a controlled burn. Beneath the calm exterior lies a reservoir of potent energy, managed with discipline and precision. It's the difference between a wildfire consuming everything in its path and a contained forge, capable of generating immense heat and power for specific, constructive purposes. This internal containment, this refusal to dissipate energy wastefully, radiates an intensity precisely because it isn't constantly on display. Others sense this coiled potential, this unspoken capacity, and it creates a subtle tension, a feeling that there is far more beneath the surface than is being revealed. Consequently, when a Sigma male does choose to genuinely engage, when he directs that conserved energy outward, the impact is magnified. It feels like a high-voltage event, cutting through the usual social static with clarity and force. Because his interactions are not diluted by constant, trivial expressions, his genuine words and actions carry significant weight. This selective output destabilizes those addicted to the constant, meaningless noise of perpetual social interaction, as they are confronted with a form of communication that is both rare and profoundly impactful, forcing them to question the substance of their own diluted expressions. This mastery of his energetic economy is a testament to his self-awareness and discipline. He has audited his life and interactions, identified the drains, and plugged them. This isn't about withholding. It's about valuing his own inner resources and deploying them with intention. The intimidation factor arises because this level of self-control is so rare, serving as an unconscious mirror to others, reflecting their own often chaotic and undisciplined energetic output, a stark contrast to the Sigma's quietly powerful, self-regulated system. 2. The human neutron bomb. When conflict inevitably arises, the Sigma male's response is unlike the explosive, dramatic reactions most people expect or even engage in themselves. He doesn't contribute to the mushroom cloud of escalating drama, the shouting matches, or the theatrical displays of wounded pride. Instead, he embodies the principle of the neutron bomb. The external structure of the situation might remain, but the volatile, reactive elements within it, the ego, the pretense, the manipulative tactics, are silently and effectively neutralized. His refusal to feed the flames of emotional escalation is a profoundly disarming strategy, rooted in an understanding that true strength lies in maintaining inner composure when external chaos reigns. This approach means that aggressors, those who thrive on emotional feedback and reciprocal outrage, find themselves suddenly standing alone in a barren landscape of their own making. Their verbal attacks, their manipulative ploys, their attempts to provoke a reaction, meet not resistance but a calm, unyielding stillness. This absence of engagement doesn't mean the Sigma is defeated. It means he refuses to fight on the aggressor's terms, understanding that dignifying irrationality with an emotional response is a loss in itself. The aggressor's tools are rendered ineffective, their fire lacking oxygen. The power here lies in the Sigma's capacity to absorb the initial impact without internalizing the negativity, much like a Stoic sage who views insults or provocations as external events, separate from their own inner state of being. He doesn't need to win the argument in the conventional sense. His victory is in the preservation of his own peace and rationality. This often leaves the instigator feeling foolish, their carefully constructed emotional assault dissipating into nothingness, exposing their own lack of control and emotional immaturity to anyone observing. The silence that follows isn't an empty silence. It's filled with the aggressor's dawning realization that their power play has failed, that their emotional currency holds no value here. The Sigma male, by refusing to become a participant in the destructive emotional exchange, effectively annihilates the fragile underpinnings of the conflict. The ego battles, the need for dominance, the emotional manipulation. He doesn't destroy the person but rather the toxic dynamic they sought to create. This neutron bomb effect is profoundly intimidating because it showcases a level of emotional discipline and strategic detachment that most find unattainable. It's a clear demonstration that he cannot be easily baited, manipulated, or drawn into pointless confrontations. His strength isn't in the volume of his response, but in the unshakable foundation of his inner calm and his refusal to allow others to dictate his emotional state, a testament to a mind that has cultivated resilience against external turbulence. 3. Architects of authentic gravity. Sigma males do not clamor for the spotlight, nor do they employ the calculated charm or persuasive tactics that define conventional charisma. Instead, they possess an innate ability to warp the social fabric around them through the sheer, unadulterated force of their presence. This isn't about actively seeking to influence. It's a passive yet powerful pull, like a celestial body whose gravity is a natural consequence of its mass and density. Their mass in this analogy is their profound self-possession, their unwavering authenticity in a world often dominated by carefully constructed personas. This authentic gravity bypasses the superficial allure of learned charisma, which is often a performance designed to win approval or gain advantage. The Sigma's influence stems not from what he does to attract attention, but from who he is. He isn't loud or ostentatious. Rather, he is dense with self-awareness, quiet confidence, and an internal coherence that is palpable. People find themselves orbiting him, not because they are explicitly invited or manipulated into doing so, but because the pull of genuine being is an undeniable and often unnerving force, especially for those whose own sense of self is built on more hollow foundations. This phenomenon can be deeply unsettling for individuals who rely on social hierarchies, overt displays of status, or manipulative charm to navigate their interactions. The Sigma male operates outside these established frameworks. His lack of need for external validation, his apparent indifference to social posturing, creates a subtle disturbance. He doesn't play the game, and in his refusal, he inadvertently exposes the game itself, making those who are heavily invested in it feel insecure or challenged by his mere presence. The intimidation here isn't born of fear in the traditional sense, but from a profound sense of encountering something inexplicably real and unshakable. It's the discomfort of facing a mirror that reflects not only the Sigma's authenticity but also one's own potential lack thereof. His quiet confidence doesn't seek to diminish others. It simply exists, and in its existence, it can make those who are less secure in their own identities feel the weight of their own compromises. This authentic gravity is a direct result of a life lived in accordance with internal principles, a journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance that cultivates a core of unshakable integrity. It is the quiet power of a man who knows himself, who trusts his own judgment, and who navigates the world with a compass calibrated to his own internal values. This, more than any overt display, is what commands respect and creates that distinct aura of intimidation, the gravitational pull of a truly authentic individual. 4. The silent scalpel of truth. When confronted with deceit, pretense, or flawed reasoning, the Sigma male rarely engages in loud, protracted arguments or emotional diatribes. He eschews the blunt instruments of verbal confrontation, opting instead for the silent scalpel of truth, a precise, almost imperceptible insight that cuts directly to the core of the issue. His method is not to dismantle an opponent's entire argument piece by piece through laborious debate, but to identify and expose the single foundational flaw upon which the entire edifice of falsehood rests. This approach is incredibly disarming. Imagine a grand, elaborate tapestry of pretense, woven with intricate lies and carefully constructed justifications. While others might try to tear it down with brute force, the Sigma simply points to the single, almost invisible loose thread. With a gentle, almost whispered observation or a pointed, thoughtfully posed question, he pulls that thread, and the entire construct unravels under its own inherent weakness. The room doesn't erupt in argument. Often, it falls into a stunned silence as the illusion collapses with an almost elegant finality. This ability stems from a highly developed sense of observation and a mind committed to rational clarity, reminiscent of Stoic discernment. The ability to see things as they truly are, stripped of emotional coloring or misleading appearances. He listens more than he speaks, and when he does speak, his words are chosen for maximum precision and impact. He's not interested in winning points or humiliating others. His focus is on unveiling the underlying truth, often with a detached, almost clinical precision that can be deeply unsettling for those invested in the illusion. The intimidation factor here lies in the intellectual efficiency and the quiet confidence with which this is executed. There's no bluster, no aggression, just the calm, undeniable exposure of a critical weakness. Those who rely on obfuscation, emotional appeals, or the sheer volume of their assertions find themselves utterly disarmed. Their complex defenses are bypassed, their carefully constructed facade crumbles in the face of a simple, unadorned truth, delivered with surgical accuracy. This silent scalpel is not a tool of malice, but a consequence of a mind dedicated to reality. The Sigma male understands that genuine strength doesn't need to shout. Truth itself carries inherent power. By simply revealing that truth, often with minimal intervention, he demonstrates a profound intellectual and psychological advantage, leaving observers to witness not a battle, but a quiet, definitive clarification that exposes the fragility of anything not built on solid ground. 5. Masters of the unearned win. In a culture that often glorifies the hustle, broadcasting every struggle and minor achievement for public consumption, Sigma males have an unsettling habit of manifesting significant results with what appears to be an almost magical ease. While others meticulously chronicle their struggle porn, detailing every obstacle and effort, Sigmas often present their victories as completed facts, pulled from the ether like a rabbit from a magician's hat. This isn't to say they don't work hard. Rather, their work is performed with such frictionless focus and in such profound silence that the process is largely invisible to the outside world. This perceived unearned win is not a product of luck or some nefarious shortcut, but the direct outcome of intense, undistracted effort executed without the need for external validation or performative busyness. They embody the Stoic principle of focusing on the process, on the internal discipline of action, rather than on the external appearance of effort. Their victories aren't paraded as trophies to solicit applause. They are simply facts, objective realities achieved through a private, disciplined application of their will and skill. The absence of a public struggle narrative doesn't mean the struggle didn't occur. It means it was a private affair, a testament to their self-reliance. The intimidating aspect of this quiet achievement lies in how it bypasses the entire industry built around the struggle narrative. Many people derive a sense of validation, even identity, from the performative suffering they associate with striving. When the Sigma achieves comparable or greater results without this public display, it can make the hustle-addicted masses feel cheated, as if a fundamental rule of the game has been broken. It exposes the often performative nature of their own suffering, forcing an uncomfortable comparison between their broadcasted efforts and the Sigma's silent efficacy. This ability to produce results without fanfare challenges the very notion that success must be accompanied by loud declarations of hardship. The Sigma male demonstrates that energy spent on broadcasting struggle is energy diverted from achieving the goal itself. His focus is internal, his motivation intrinsic, and his satisfaction derived from the accomplishment itself, not from the subsequent accolades. This self-contained approach to achievement is profoundly unsettling to a society increasingly geared towards external validation and the commodification of personal narratives. Ultimately, the unearned win is a misnomer. The win is thoroughly earned, but the currency of that earning, silent dedication, unwavering focus, and internal discipline, is invisible to those who only measure worth by its outward demonstration. The Sigma's quiet triumphs serve as a powerful, if disconcerting, reminder that the most profound work is often done in the silence of one's own disciplined mind, far from the clamor of the crowd. 6. The immunity gene. Social pressure, fleeting trends, and the pervasive influence of groupthink act like viruses in the collective consciousness, infecting minds and dictating behaviors with remarkable efficiency. Yet, the Sigma male appears to possess a kind underscore of genetic immunity to these societal contagions. He doesn't typically rage against the machine of popular opinion or expend energy actively resisting trends. He simply lacks the internal receptors for its programming. It's as if the signals of mass hysteria, fashionable outrage, or coercive conformity pass right through him, unable to find purchase. This innate resistance isn't born of contrarianism for its own sake, but from a deeply rooted internal locus of control and an unwavering commitment to his own rational assessment of the world. He filters information through his own understanding, his own values, rather than passively absorbing the prepackaged opinions served up by the collective. This aligns with the Stoic ideal of living in accordance with nature, one's own rational nature, rather than being swayed by the irrational passions or fleeting fancies of the crowd. His mind is his own sovereign territory. Watching someone remain completely unaffected by the collective neurosis that grips those around them can be profoundly destabilizing for the participants in that neurosis. When everyone is panicking about the same perceived crisis, or obsessing over the same triviality, the Sigma's calm detachment or simple lack of interest acts as an uncomfortable mirror. It forces others to confront a deeply unsettling question. If he doesn't need this validation, this shared anxiety, this collective identity, then do I? This immunity isn't a shield he actively deploys, it's a fundamental aspect of his being. He doesn't define himself by his opposition to the mainstream, but by his adherence to his own internal compass. Trends come and go, outrage shifts from one target to another, but his core principles remain constant. This steadfastness, this apparent imperviousness to the social weather, can be perceived as aloofness or even arrogance by those who derive their sense of belonging and security from conforming to the group. The intimidation, then, stems from the Sigma's demonstration of true independence of thought. He is a living example that it is possible to exist outside the prevailing mental frameworks, to be an individual not just in theory but in practice. This quiet defiance of social contagion is a powerful testament to self-mastery and resilience, highlighting the uncomfortable truth that much of what people feel pressured to believe or do is, in fact, optional. 7. The currency of scarcity, affection. In a world where expressions of approval and affection are often dispensed casually, almost like fiat currency, easily printed, widely circulated, and consequently devalued, the Sigma male's affection and genuine regard operate on a different economic principle, the gold standard of scarcity and authentic respect. He doesn't withhold warmth or positive sentiment as a manipulative tactic. Rather, he refuses to counterfeit it. His expressions of care, respect, or admiration are not performative gestures designed to lubricate social interactions or curry favor. They are rare commodities, reserved for those who have genuinely earned them through demonstrable character and integrity. This scarcity creates immense psychological value. Because his positive regard is not given lightly, receiving it feels significant, like an earned treasure rather than a casually tossed trinket. When a Sigma male offers genuine praise, profound respect, or sincere affection, it carries an undeniable weight and authenticity. This contrasts sharply with the cheap, easily obtained approval that others might peddle, which in comparison begins to feel like worthless paper. His discernment in these matters highlights the often inflated and insincere nature of common social affirmations. The principle here resonates with a Stoic emphasis on sincerity and aligning one's words with one's true judgment. The Sigma doesn't feel compelled to offer compliments he doesn't mean or feign enthusiasm he doesn't feel, simply to adhere to social convention. This isn't about being unkind or cold, it's about preserving the integrity of his own emotional expressions. He understands that insincere praise is a form of deception, however minor, and it dilutes the value of genuine sentiment. This selective distribution of positive regard can be intimidating because it operates outside the usual economy of social approval where flattery and superficial compliments are common currency. People who are accustomed to easily gaining positive feedback, or who rely on it for their sense of self-worth, may find the Sigma's reserve unsettling. They may misinterpret his selectivity as disapproval or aloofness, failing to understand that he is simply unwilling to participate in emotional inflation. Ultimately, the value of the Sigma's affection lies in its earned nature. It's a clear signal that he sees something genuinely commendable, something of true worth. This makes his rare expressions of warmth and respect profoundly impactful and deeply coveted, not because he plays hard to get, but because his approval is a direct reflection of his genuine, unvarnished assessment, making it a currency of true and lasting worth. 8. The X-ray gaze protocol. Eye contact from a Sigma male is rarely a mere social lubricant, a fleeting acknowledgement designed to ease interpersonal dynamics. Instead, it often functions more like a diagnostic scan, an X-ray gaze that seems to bypass the carefully constructed persona and interface directly with the core self of the person before him. This isn't typically an act of aggression or a deliberate attempt to dominate. It's a manifestation of profound, unflinching seeing, a deep observation that seeks to understand the reality beneath the surface. Most people navigate the world behind curated facades, layers of presentation designed to project a certain image or protect their vulnerabilities. The Sigma's gaze, however, possesses an unsettling clarity that can feel like being suddenly stripped bare in a crowded room. This perceived exposure isn't necessarily because he is judging what he sees, but because his perception is so direct and unfiltered. He isn't easily distracted by superficial charm or elaborate self-presentations. His focus penetrates to a deeper level of being, and this intensity can be incredibly disquieting. This capacity for profound observation is akin to the Stoic practice of prosok, or sustained attention, applied not just to oneself but to understanding the true nature of others and of situations. He is looking for authenticity, for congruence between what is presented and what is real. This doesn't mean he is interrogating, but rather that his default mode of interaction involves a level of perception that most people are not accustomed to and may not be comfortable with, as it challenges their ability to maintain their social masks. The intimidation arises from this sense of enforced vulnerability. When someone feels truly seen beyond their performance and pretenses, it can trigger a range of reactions from discomfort to outright fear, especially if there are insecurities or incongruities they wish to keep hidden. The Sigma's gaze doesn't accuse, It simply perceives, and this perception can be more unnerving than any overt challenge because it implies a level of understanding that leaves little room for artifice. This X-ray gaze protocol is therefore a hallmark of the Sigma's interaction style. Not an invasion, but a quiet, powerful mode of engagement that demands a degree of truthfulness from those he interacts with. It's the gaze of a man who is unafraid to see reality as it is, and who, by his very presence, encourages a similar, if uncomfortable, honesty in others, making superficial encounters difficult and deep connections possible. 9. The self-contained ecosystem. Sigma males operate as their own sovereign nations of validation, internal republics where self-worth is not an imported commodity subject to external market forces, but an internally generated and fiercely protected resource. Their sense of value, their confidence, and their identity are cultivated from within, drawing sustenance from their own principles, achievements, and self-awareness. This makes them remarkably impervious to the inflation and deflation cycles of external opinion, public approval, or social criticism. This internal sourcing of validation is a cornerstone of their intimidating presence. In a world where so many are tethered to the whims of social media likes, peer approval, and the fluctuating opinions of the crowd, the Sigma's self-sufficiency stands out as a radical act of independence. Watching someone who is genuinely, quietly complete in themselves, who doesn't angle for praise or crumble under criticism, can be both magnetic and terrifying. It highlights, by stark contrast, the exhausting dependency many others have on constant external reassurance for their emotional and psychological equilibrium. This self-contained nature mirrors the Stoic ideal of finding contentment within, understanding that external events and opinions are ultimately indifferent and should not dictate one's inner peace or self-regard. The Sigma has, through conscious effort or intuitive understanding, built an internal citadel where his core identity is secure, regardless of the storms raging outside its walls. He is the primary arbiter of his own worth, his internal metrics taking precedence over any external judgment. The intimidation factor doesn't stem from any explicit declaration of superiority, but from the quiet demonstration of unshakable self-possession. When attempts to belittle him through criticism fall flat, or efforts to sway him with flattery gain no traction, it reveals the futility of such tactics against a mind that does not seek its center outside itself. This can be deeply frustrating for those who rely on such emotional levers to influence or control others. Ultimately, the Sigma male's self-contained ecosystem is a testament to a profound level of psychological maturity and independence. He has cultivated a rich inner landscape that provides him with the affirmation and direction he needs, making him a beacon of self-reliance. This quiet completeness is a powerful, if silent, challenge to the prevailing culture of externalized worth, and a source of the unique intimidation he projects. 10. The Strategic Ghost Protocol. For the Sigma male, privacy is not merely a preference or a casual hobby. It is an essential component of his operational strategy, a form of camouflage that preserves his energy and safeguards his autonomy. In an era characterized by rampant oversharing and a near-compulsive need for public disclosure, the Sigma's deliberate cultivation of silence and obscurity acts as a formidable fortress. He understands, either consciously or intuitively, that mystery isn't cultivated through deliberate vagueness or theatrical elusiveness, but through a radical and disciplined selectivity in what he chooses to reveal about himself. This ghost protocol is not about being deceitful or evasive for no reason. It is a strategic choice rooted in the understanding that information is power, and that needless self-exposure can create vulnerabilities. He doesn't feel the urge to broadcast his thoughts, plans, or personal life to the world. What he doesn't reveal becomes a significant part of his mystique. This carefully curated unknown becomes a space onto which others project their own anxieties, assumptions, and curiosities, effectively allowing him to weaponize the void of information without uttering a single word or taking any overt action. This approach to privacy is reminiscent of a Stoic discretion, a recognition that not all thoughts need to be voiced, and not all aspects of one's life are for public consumption. It's a form of self-mastery, controlling not just one's actions but also one's disclosures. This contrasts sharply with the prevailing culture where personal data is willingly surrendered and every fleeting thought is deemed worthy of broadcast. The Sigma's reserve, therefore, seems almost anachronistic yet powerfully effective. The intimidation derived from this protocol is subtle but potent. People are often made uncomfortable by what they cannot easily define, categorize, or understand. The Sigma's strategic opacity denies them the data points they typically use to form quick judgments or exert social leverage. This lack of accessible information can be frustrating and unsettling, as it forces others to deal with him on his terms, without the usual social reconnaissance that precedes most interactions. By maintaining this level of privacy, the Sigma male preserves his freedom of movement and thought. He avoids being pigeonholed, prejudged, or entangled in unnecessary social dramas based on shared information. His silence is not empty, it is a shield and a statement, a quiet declaration of his sovereignty over his own narrative, making him an enigmatic and therefore formidable figure in a transparent world. 11. The Unpredictability Singularity. Sigma males are not inherently chaotic or erratic in their behavior. Rather, they exist outside the predictive algorithms that govern most social expectations and interactions. Their actions, decisions, and even their silences stem from an internal compass, a navigational system calibrated solely to their own true north, a direction invisible and often incomprehensible to outside observers. This makes them a singularity of unpredictability, not because they strive to be contrary, but because their motivations are deeply intrinsic and not easily mapped by conventional social calculus. This isn't a calculated game of playing hard to get, or being deliberately mysterious for effect. It's a natural consequence of living authentically, guided by internal principles rather than external pressures or the desire to conform to a predictable pattern. While most people's behavior can be reasonably anticipated based on social norms, peer influence, or common desires, the Sigma's choices often defy such easy forecasting. He might pursue an unconventional path, make a decision that seems counterintuitive to others, or react in a way that is entirely unexpected, because his reasoning is based on a personal framework of values and objectives that others are not privy to. This fundamental unknowability in conventional terms triggers a deep cognitive dissonance and unease in many people. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We find comfort in predictability and the ability to categorize our experiences and the people within them. The Sigma male often resists easy categorization, refusing to fit neatly into predefined social boxes. This inability to anticipate his next move or fully grasp his underlying motivations can be profoundly unsettling, as it challenges the observer's sense of control and understanding of their social environment. His unpredictability is not a weapon he wields intentionally, but an inherent quality that arises from his independence of thought and action. It's a reflection of a mind that is not bound by the script, a spirit that charts its own course. This can be intimidating because it means he cannot be easily manipulated, influenced by peer pressure, or controlled by social expectations. He operates on his own terms, and those terms are not always legible to the outside world. Therefore, the unpredictability singularity is the point where the external world's ability to forecast the Sigma's behavior breaks down. He becomes an enigma not by effort but by essence. This quality forces others to engage with him in the present moment, without relying on assumptions or past patterns, a level of authentic interaction that many find both challenging and, paradoxically, compelling due to its sheer genuineness. You feel that resonance? That low hum beneath the noise of the everyday, beneath the chatter of expectation? That is the distinct frequency of unfiltered reality, the sound of authenticity cutting through the static. Whether you walk this path of independent thought and self-reliance instinctively, having always felt like an observer more than a participant in the conventional games of society, or you are increasingly drawn to its stark, uncompromising power, understand this fundamental truth. The discomfort that others may feel in your presence, the intimidation we are dissecting today, is not a reflection of a flaw within you. Instead, it is the inevitable friction generated when their carefully constructed illusions, their comfortable conformities, scrape against the unyielding surface of your authenticity. Continue to calibrate that internal compass. Continue to trust that inner voice. The world is desperately in need of more clear signals, more individuals who have the courage to broadcast their own unique frequency, cutting through the pervasive static of mediocrity and groupthink. Your journey is not just your own, it is a quiet beacon for others. 12. The mirror of unvarnished reality. Perhaps the most potent and subtly intimidating trait of the Sigma male isn't something he actively does, but rather the unavoidable reflection he is. His mere existence, lived with an uncompromised commitment to his own principles and an unapologetic authenticity, functions as a high-definition mirror for everyone who comes into his sphere. In his presence, people don't just see the Sigma. They are often confronted with a sudden, sometimes brutally clear reflection of their own compromises, their unacknowledged self-deceptions, and the performative masks they wear to navigate the social world. This involuntary self-confrontation is often the root of the deepest intimidation. It's not that the Sigma is judging them or pointing out their flaws. His authenticity simply creates a stark contrast. If he can live without constant external validation, why can't they? If he can remain calm and rational in the face of provocation, why do they react so emotionally? If he can pursue his goals with quiet dedication and without the need for public fanfare, what does that say about their own need for applause? These are the uncomfortable questions his presence can silently evoke. This mirroring effect is powerful because it bypasses intellectual defenses. It's an experiential realization, a felt sense of discrepancy between one's own curated image and the raw authenticity embodied by the Sigma. For individuals who have invested heavily in their facades, or who are out of touch with their own deeper selves, this reflection can be deeply unsettling, even perceived as an attack, though no attack was ever launched. The discomfort comes from within the observer, triggered by the dissonance between what they project and what they truly are. The Sigma male, often unknowingly, becomes a catalyst for this self-reflection in others. His commitment to living in accordance with his true self, a principle with echoes in Stoic virtue ethics where living authentically and rationally is paramount, sets a standard that can make inauthenticity feel glaringly obvious. He doesn't preach or proselytize. His life itself is the sermon, and its message can be profoundly challenging to those not living in alignment with their own potential. Therefore, the intimidation is not of the Sigma himself, but of the truth he inadvertently reveals. He is the still lake that reflects the sky perfectly, but also shows the mud at the bottom. People are not afraid of the lake, but sometimes they are afraid of what they see in its reflection of themselves, and this makes the mirror itself seem formidable. 13. The post-approval paradigm. Sigma males operate within a psychological framework that exists almost entirely beyond the pervasive human need for permission, praise, or external validation. Their decisions are akin to internal edicts, decrees issued from a sovereign internal authority, rather than petitions submitted to the court of public opinion for consensus or approval. This isn't born of arrogance or a desire to flout convention for its own sake. It is the natural posture of genuine sovereignty, of a mind that has located its primary source of authority within. Witnessing someone operate completely free from the approval economy, that vast, invisible marketplace where compliments are currency and acceptance is the prize, can be existentially challenging for most people. So much of societal behavior is subtly or overtly geared towards gaining approval, avoiding disapproval, or managing one's image in the eyes of others. The Sigma's apparent indifference to this entire system exposes the invisible chains that most people wear willingly, making him seem dangerously, and often enviably, unshackled. This post-approval state resonates with the Stoic concept of focusing on one's own virtuous actions and rational judgments as the sole arbiters of worth, rather than seeking validation from externals which are inherently fickle and beyond one's direct control. The Sigma has, in essence, declared independence from the need for external affirmation. His actions are guided by his internal assessment of what is right, necessary, or aligned with his goals, irrespective of whether those actions will be popular or understood. The intimidation here comes from the sheer rarity and perceived audacity of such self-reliance. To those enmeshed in the cycle of seeking approval, the Sigma's autonomy can seem like a superpower or a profound rebellion. It challenges their own motivations and raises uncomfortable questions about the extent to which their own lives are dictated by the desire for external validation. His freedom highlights their own entanglement. This paradigm isn't about rejecting connection or feedback. It's about the source of fundamental decision-making and self-worth. The Sigma may listen to advice, consider information, but the ultimate verdict comes from within. This internal locus of command, this quiet refusal to subordinate his judgment to the collective, is what defines his operation in a post-approval world, making him a figure of intimidating and often inspiring autonomy. 14. The emotional null zone. Insults, attempts at flattery, manipulative guilt trips, or emotionally charged provocations. These common projectiles of interpersonal dynamics often vaporize upon entering the Sigma male's sphere of influence. He doesn't typically erect defensive walls or engage in energetic deflection. Rather, he seems to possess an innate field of emotional neutrality that renders such tactics ineffective. This isn't necessarily a conscious, practiced stoicism in every instance, but often a fundamental lack of internal hooks upon which external emotional manipulation can latch. When an insult is hurled, it finds no reactive anger or insecurity to ignite. When excessive flattery is deployed, it encounters no desperate ego-craving adulation. When guilt trips are attempted, they meet a mind that operates on rational assessment of responsibility, not on susceptibility to emotional coercion. Attackers or manipulators don't find themselves defeated in an emotional battle. They find their efforts rendered entirely irrelevant, their emotional ammunition disappearing into a void of calm non-reaction. This emotional null zone is profoundly disarming and frustrating for those who rely on emotional leverage to control or influence others. Their usual toolkit of psychological prods and pulls simply doesn't work. The Sigma's response, or lack thereof, isn't necessarily cold or unfeeling. It is simply unperturbed in a way that communicates an unshakable inner equilibrium. He observes the emotional outburst or manipulative attempt as an external phenomenon, much like watching a storm pass, without allowing it to disturb his internal weather. The intimidation factor here lies in this apparent invulnerability to common forms of emotional warfare. It signals a high degree of self-awareness and emotional regulation, a mastery over one's own internal state that prevents external provocations from dictating his responses. This isn't about suppressing emotions, but about processing them rationally and choosing not to grant them undue power, especially when they are being weaponized by others. This capacity to maintain an emotional null zone effectively short-circuits manipulative strategies and forces interactions onto a more rational, less emotionally volatile plane. It demonstrates that the Sigma male cannot be easily baited or controlled through emotional appeals, establishing him as a figure of formidable psychological resilience and composure, whose inner peace is not for sale and not easily disturbed. 15. The anti-narrative stance. Sigma males often exhibit a profound refusal to passively participate in or be subsumed by the collective storytelling that shapes so much of group identity and social cohesion. The shared assumptions, the groupthink, the manufactured narratives, and the often unexamined official stories that bind communities or organizations. Their silence in the face of a dominant narrative is frequently not an indication of agreement or acquiescence. Rather, it is a potent withdrawal of consent from the shared fiction, a quiet but firm non-participation. This stance is not necessarily about active rebellion or a desire to sow discord. Instead, it often stems from a commitment to individual perception and critical thinking, a reluctance to accept narratives at face value without personal scrutiny. Much like a Stoic philosopher prizes clear judgment and the unvarnished truth, the Sigma male values his own assessment of reality over the comfort of collective consensus. He observes the narratives being woven around him, and if they don't align with his experience or rational analysis, he simply declines to become a thread in that particular tapestry. This non-participation can act like a silent demolition charge under the foundations of a group's constructed reality. When one person, especially a respected or keenly observant individual, quietly abstains from endorsing the prevailing story, it can force an unnerving question into the minds of others. If he doesn't buy into this narrative, if he doesn't seem to need it, is it even real? Or is it something we've all just agreed to believe? This can be profoundly destabilizing for groups that rely on unquestioning adherence to a shared worldview. The intimidation here is subtle. It's not the threat of attack, but the threat of invalidation. By refusing to validate the collective story through his participation, the Sigma inadvertently highlights its constructed nature, its potential fragility. He becomes a living question mark, a quiet dissenter whose very lack of engagement can speak volumes and challenge the comfort of unquestioned agreement. This anti-narrative stance, therefore, is a powerful demonstration of intellectual independence. The Sigma male isn't trying to impose his own narrative. He is simply reserving his right to not subscribe to one he finds unconvincing or inauthentic. This quiet refusal to be scripted, to be an unthinking character in someone else's play, is a mark of his formidable autonomy and his unsettling ability to see beyond the collective stage. 16. The calculated void, explanation. When faced with misunderstanding, misinterpretation, or even direct questioning that seems designed to elicit a defensive reaction, the Sigma male often employs a unique and unsettling strategy. Instead of rushing to fill the void with explanations, justifications, or clarifications, he expands it. His silence in these moments is not passive or indicative of ignorance or guilt. It is a deliberate, calculated vacuum, a space he intentionally leaves open. This creation of a void serves a profound psychological purpose. Human nature abhors a vacuum, especially in communication. When the expected response is withheld, others tend to rush in to fill the silence with their own assumptions, projections, anxieties, and interpretations. In their haste to make sense of the Sigma's lack of engagement, they inadvertently reveal far more about their own internal state, their own biases, and their own perspectives than they ever managed to elicit or learn about the Sigma himself. The power in this technique lies in its subtle redirection of energy. The person demanding an explanation or casting an accusation finds themselves talking into an echo chamber of their own making. The Sigma, by remaining a calm, observant presence, allows the other party to essentially self-disclose, often exposing their own insecurities or manipulative intentions without him needing to utter a single defensive word. It's a masterful display of allowing others to drown in the very noise they attempted to use to unsettle him. This calculated void is intimidating because it defies the normal script of confrontation or inquiry. Most people expect defensiveness, argument, or at least some form of verbal engagement. The Sigma's quiet, unwavering stillness in the face of such pressure can be incredibly unnerving. It signals a level of self-control and strategic thinking that is difficult to counter. It suggests he is not threatened by their questions or opinions, and that he is perfectly comfortable allowing them to sit with their own discomfort. Ultimately, this isn't about being evasive for the sake of it. It's a reflection of a deep understanding of human psychology and a commitment to conserving his own energy while gaining maximum insight. The calculated void is the Sigma's quiet arena, where others often defeat themselves with their own unbridled assumptions, proving that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, allowing the silence itself to become the explanation. 17. The fluidity of form. Sigma males inherently defy easy categorization, consistently frustrating those who rely on neat labels and predictable typologies to understand the world and the people in it. They can exhibit intense, laser-like focus at one moment, and then display an expansive, zen-like relaxation in the next. They might engage in deeply analytical thought processes for a complex problem, and then make a swift, spontaneously decisive choice based on well-honed intuition. This isn't a performance of versatility or a conscious effort to be enigmatic. It is, for them, a natural flow state, an adaptability that arises from being deeply attuned to the needs of the moment and their own internal resources. This lack of a fixed, predictable type makes them exceptionally difficult to pigeonhole and therefore to control or manipulate. Those who interact with them expecting a consistent, easily definable persona often find themselves disoriented. Is he an introvert or an extrovert? A thinker or a doer? A leader or a lone wolf? The answer is often all of the above and none exclusively. He adapts his approach based on context and internal imperatives, not based on a preset social role or personality script. This fluidity of form is like mercury, cohesive and possessing its own integrity, yet capable of shifting and adapting its shape to its container or circumstances. This can be incredibly frustrating for individuals who need static labels to feel secure in their understanding of others, or who rely on predictable behavioral patterns to strategize their social interactions. The Sigma's ability to morph and adapt means that strategies that worked yesterday might be ineffective today, keeping others constantly off balance. The intimidation factor here isn't about aggression, but about elusiveness. It's hard to get a firm grasp on someone who is constantly, naturally adapting. This isn't an inconsistency of character, but rather a consistency in adhering to a more fundamental principle: authentic response to present reality. His core self remains stable, but its expression is dynamic, a reflection of his attunement to the ever-changing landscape of life, much like a Stoic adapts to fate while maintaining inner virtue. This fluid adaptability is a significant source of the Sigma's quiet power. It allows him to navigate diverse situations and interact with a wide range of people effectively, without losing himself or becoming predictable. He is not a fixed target, but a moving current, making him a uniquely challenging and therefore formidable presence in any social or professional environment. 18. The economy of motion, social. Every word uttered, every gesture made, every social engagement initiated by a Sigma male tends to carry a remarkable density of purpose and meaning. He instinctively rejects social filler, the empty pleasantries exchanged out of mere obligation, the forced laughter designed to smooth over silences, the obligatory small talk that consumes time without generating substance. This inherent efficiency in his social interactions creates an immense psychological weight. When he does choose to speak or act in a social context, his contribution lands with the focused impact of a diamond dropped on a sheet of glass, precisely because the usual background noise of social static has been entirely eliminated from his demeanor. This economy of motion isn't about being curt, rude, or antisocial. It's about a profound respect for his own time and energy, and often by extension for the time and energy of others who appreciate directness. He doesn't feel the need to fill silences with trivialities, nor does he engage in conversations that lack a clear purpose or genuine interest for him. This adherence to meaningful interaction can be unsettling in a world where so much communication is perfunctory or performative. This principle aligns with a Stoic appreciation for conciseness and purposeful speech, saying what needs to be said and no more. The Sigma male seems to have an internal editor that filters out the superfluous, leaving only the essential. This means that when he does offer an opinion, ask a question, or share an observation, it is usually well considered and pertinent, compelling others to pay closer attention than they might to a more verbose individual. The intimidation factor arises from this very concision and urgency. In a social landscape often cluttered with verbal chaff, the Sigma's lean communication style stands out. It can make others self-conscious about their own tendencies towards rambling or inconsequential chatter. His focused intent implies that he values substance and expects the same in return, which can be a daunting prospect for those accustomed to more superficial modes of engagement. Ultimately, the Sigma's economy of social motion is a hallmark of his disciplined mind and his respect for genuine connection over ritualistic interaction. He demonstrates that true impact doesn't require volume or verbosity, but clarity, intention, and the courage to dispense with the unnecessary, making his every communication, however brief, resonate with an uncommon significance. 19. The Internal Meritocracy. Sigma males operate under a deeply ingrained internal meritocracy, where status symbols, impressive titles, and the trappings of external validation hold little to no inherent value. Their respect, attention, and genuine regard are not swayed by superficial accolades or societal hierarchies. Instead, these are earned solely through observed and verified substance, qualities like unwavering integrity, demonstrable competence, genuine strength of character, and authentic wisdom. They possess an uncanny ability to see through the glittering facade of social status and perceived power. This internal value system means that conventional power plays, attempts to impress through name-dropping, displays of wealth, or assertions of rank are often utterly meaningless, and can even appear faintly ridiculous in their presence. The Sigma is not assessing the label. He is assessing the person. He is not interested in the packaging. He is examining the contents. This can be incredibly disorienting for individuals whose identity and influence are heavily invested in such external markers. This perspective resonates with the Stoic principle of valuing virtue above all else, recognizing that true worth resides in one's character and actions, not in external possessions or the opinions of others. The Sigma male has, in essence, established his own supreme court of judgment, and its criteria are based on intrinsic qualities rather than extrinsic achievements or societal approval. He seeks out the genuine and quietly dismisses the artificial. The intimidation factor here stems from the Sigma's immunity to the usual tools of social leverage and status signaling. If one's power or influence relies heavily on a title, a reputation, or material wealth, these tools lose their efficacy when confronted with someone who simply doesn't assign them the same value. This can leave the status-conscious individual feeling exposed or irrelevant, their usual currency devalued in this particular interaction. By adhering to this internal meritocracy, the Sigma male fosters interactions based on genuine mutual respect and authentic value, rather than on superficial social games. His focus on substance over show acts as a quiet challenge to a world often obsessed with appearances, making him a formidable judge of character and a difficult person to impress with anything less than true worth. 20. The Detachment Engine. Sigma males often possess a profound and well-developed capacity for detachment, a detachment from outcomes they cannot control, from people who prove themselves to be inauthentic or draining, and from situations that offer no opportunity for genuine growth or meaningful engagement. This is not to be mistaken for coldness, apathy, or an inability to connect. Rather, it is a highly strategic and sophisticated mechanism for energy conservation and the preservation of their internal equilibrium. They invest their valuable time, focus, and emotional energy only where it yields authentic returns or aligns with their core principles. This detachment engine allows them to navigate the often turbulent waters of life with a remarkable degree of composure. When faced with setbacks, they are less likely to be consumed by frustration or despair because their self-worth isn't solely tethered to specific outcomes. When dealing with toxic individuals, they can disengage without excessive emotional turmoil, recognizing that they cannot control others' behavior, only their own response to it. This aligns closely with the Stoic practice of distinguishing between what is in our control and what is not, and focusing our efforts solely on the former. This level of detachment can be deeply unnerving to those who are emotionally entangled in every minor drama, who desperately crave constant connection, even superficial ones, or who believe every interaction must carry profound emotional weight. The Sigma's ability to remain relatively unaffected by things that would send others into an emotional spiral can be misinterpreted as indifference, but it is more accurately understood as a testament to his self-sufficiency and his refusal to outsource his emotional state. The intimidation factor here arises from the sheer level of inner strength and emotional independence this detachment signals. It communicates that the Sigma cannot be easily manipulated by emotional appeals, held hostage by the expectations of others, or drawn into unproductive conflicts. His peace of mind is internally generated and fiercely protected, making him a difficult target for emotional contagion or psychological games. Ultimately, the detachment engine is a core component of the Sigma's resilience and effectiveness. It allows him to maintain clarity, make rational decisions even under pressure, and allocate his resources wisely. This quiet power of non-attachment makes him a formidable and often enigmatic figure, operating with a level of freedom that many observe with a mixture of awe and apprehension. 21. The Unspoken Ultimatum. Interaction with a Sigma male often carries an implicit, unspoken, yet entirely non-negotiable condition. Bring your authentic self to the table or be prepared to encounter polite, and perhaps even profound, indifference. He won't typically engage in dramatic callouts, public shaming, or overt confrontations regarding inauthenticity. Instead, he will simply cease to meaningfully engage with the facade. The mask, the pretense, the carefully constructed persona, these will meet a quiet, impenetrable wall of disinterest. This isn't a judgment delivered with malice, but a natural consequence of his own commitment to authenticity and his respect for genuine interaction. He has little time or energy for superficial games or the maintenance of false fronts. If he senses that he is interacting with a performance rather than a person, his engagement will likely become minimal, courteous but ultimately superficial, reserving his genuine attention and energy for what he perceives as real. This forces a subtle but powerful choice upon those who interact with him. The choice is stark: either rise to the level of genuine, unvarnished interaction, shedding the layers of pretense, or accept being relegated to the periphery of his attention. There are no theatrics involved, no grand pronouncements, just the quiet, inevitable consequence of his internal operating system. He doesn't demand authenticity from others with words. His own authentic presence makes inauthenticity feel awkward and unsustainable in his vicinity. This unspoken ultimatum can be intimidating because it challenges people at a fundamental level. It asks them to be vulnerable, to be real, in a world where many have learned to hide behind carefully crafted images. For those comfortable with their masks, or perhaps even unaware of them, the Sigma's quiet refusal to engage with anything less than the genuine article can feel like a rejection, even when it is merely a boundary. The power of this ultimatum lies in its passivity and its inevitability. The Sigma male doesn't need to enforce it. It enforces itself through his consistent preference for substance over show. This quiet insistence on authenticity is a hallmark of his interactions, making encounters with him a potential catalyst for self-reflection and a subtle call for others to meet him on the ground of unvarnished truth. 22. The unnamed 13th trait, the core ruthless self-honesty. Beneath all the observable behaviors, the strategic silences, the intellectual acuities, and the quiet intensities that make the Sigma male a formidable presence, lies the bedrock, the reactor core from which all his other distinctive traits are powered: ruthless self-honesty. This is the often unseen, unnamed 13th trait, the internal crucible where his character is forged. He confronts his own shadows, interrogates his own motivations, and acknowledges his own flaws with an unflinching, often brutal clarity that most people reserve only for the judgment of others, if they engage in it at all. This commitment to radical self-awareness means he doesn't outsource his self-worth to external validation, nor does he hide from the uncomfortable truths about his own nature. He has looked into his own abyss, not with fear, but with a determination to understand and integrate. This internal reckoning, this continuous process of self-examination and alignment with his deepest principles, is the true source of his unshakable foundation. It's a journey that echoes the Stoic imperative for constant self-improvement and the honest assessment of one's own progress in virtue. This inner sovereignty, born from such profound self-honesty, is what makes him largely impervious to the common social games, manipulations, and anxieties that consume so many. Because he has already faced his own harshest critic, himself. The judgments or pressures of the external world often lack the same sting or influence. He has audited his own soul and is accountable, first and foremost, to his own conscience and his own understanding of truth. The external traits that people find intimidating, his independence, his silence, his perceptiveness, are merely the radiation emitted by this intensely powerful inner core. He is not trying to be intimidating. He is simply being the consequence of a man who has made a profound peace with and taken absolute, unyielding responsibility for his own reality, his own choices, and his own internal landscape. This ruthless self-honesty is the ultimate wellspring of his strength. It's the quiet engine driving his resilience, his clarity, and his unwavering commitment to living authentically. It is this internal alignment, this profound congruence between his inner world and his outer actions, that generates the undeniable power and the often misunderstood intimidation that defines the Sigma male. He has mastered himself, and in that mastery he inadvertently challenges everyone else to begin their own journey inward. The path of the Sigma male, as we've explored today here at Sigma Male Community, is not about adopting a persona or cultivating an image of aloofness. It is about a profound commitment to inner truth, to self-mastery, and to the rational, disciplined life that naturally commands respect and, yes, can even intimidate those unaccustomed to such unwavering authenticity. The characteristics we've dissected are not tricks to be learned, but rather emergent qualities of a mind dedicated to its own sovereign development. They are the outward signs of an internal landscape cultivated with intention and resilience, echoing the timeless wisdom of Stoic thought which champions the virtuous and rational soul above all else. If these insights have resonated with you, if you recognize aspects of your own journey in these descriptions, or if you are inspired to cultivate a greater degree of this focused, authentic power in your own life, then your journey aligns with the core principles we champion. This isn't about being feared. It's about being so grounded in your own reality that the superficialities of the world lose their power over you. It's about becoming a force of quiet integrity. We encourage you to reflect deeply on these points, not just as observations of others, but as potential signposts for your own growth and development. Consider which of these traits you already embody, and which you might strive to cultivate further, not for the sake of intimidation, but for the pursuit of genuine excellence and unshakable self-possession. The value of Sigma Male community lies in being more than just a channel. We aim to be a guide, a source of unflinching wisdom and practical insight for men who are committed to navigating life with strength, independence, and a clear internal compass. If you found value in this exploration, demonstrate your support. Like this video if it provided you with food for thought. Comment below with your own observations, or share which point resonated most deeply with your experience. Your insights enrich this community. Share this video with other men who you believe are walking this path or would benefit from understanding it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Sigma Male Community and be sure to click that notification bell. By doing so, you ensure you won't miss out on our future deep dives into the mindset, strategies, and philosophies that empower a man to live life on his own terms, with clarity, purpose, and unyielding strength. Stay focused, stay sovereign, and continue to build that internal citadel.